Welcome to the Ulkalar's How-To for Elemental Shaman. If you're new, there are lots of details to take your gameplay from beginner to advanced. If you're experienced, there are lots of little tips and tricks to maximize your play with this build. Check the chapters if you need to jump around. The build and extra bits are in the description, and we are going off meta today. The build we're talking about today is lightning with a side of Icefury and almost no meatballs. We will look at why you should not use this build, the talents and options you have in building it, how to build and spend in single, low cleave, and high AoE situations. At the end, we'll have a quick note on the stats, consumables, and some sim results based on my character. Let's talk about why you'd want to use this build. First of all, the damage is competitive. There are some caveats to that. Primarily, it's better in larger AoE pulls and weaker on single target. So you're going to find it's a lot more viable in fortified weeks than it is tyrannical weeks. Secondly, you're banking less on RNG. You don't have to worry about the DRE or deeply rooted elements procs to give you big AoE DPS. Lastly, lightning is fun. You get your cool storm elemental pet, you get your improved earth elementals, and it just kind of looks cool. Alright, let's talk about the talent build. Alright, let's start with the elemental side. We can pick everything up here. We're going to do storm elemental. There will be discussion later about optional talents that you could take. For now, you can just follow this build. We want to get down the left side so we can get all our electric stuff. We want to get our Icefury with our electrified shocks. Very important. Get some extra Maelstrom. We'll take Aftershock. Master the Elements. Power of Maelstrom. Over here on the right, we're going to finish off Primal Elementalist. Down the middle, we're going to finish off Mountains Will Fall. And down the left, we're going to get our Lightning Rod. We're going to take Elemental Blast for single target and 1 point left into Elemental Equilibrium. Down the Shaman side of things, Ellie, Wind Shear, Astral Shift. Frost Shock's important for our electrified shocks. We need some damage reduction. We need our Purge so we can get Nature's Fury and down into our movement and survivability with Gust of Wind. Coming back, we need Spirit Walker's Grace because casting while moving is important, and we want to do that more often. Wind Rush, good utility. Elemental Warding, good. Improved Lightning Bolt, free lightning damage. Nature's Guardian. We're going to go down the left side with Totemic Surge, Mana Spring, Ancestral Guidance. Nature's Fury, Capacitor Totem, and Static. Let's talk about the key talents here. Mountains Will Fall, Lightning Rod, and Echoes of the Great Sundering. Mountains Will Fall allows your mastery to overload our main spender abilities, which are Elemental Blast and Earthquake at 50% effectiveness. Lightning Rod will mark a target hit by our Blast or Quake to take 20% of all damage we deal with Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning. Elemental Blast here is straightforward. It only hits one target, but Earthquake is a bit different. The key thing to know is that if your target does not have Lightning Rod on it, when you cast Earthquake, Lightning Rod will apply to that target. So always try to swap targets when DPSing in AoE so you can spread the Lightning Rods around. Echoes of Great Sundering is our other super important talent here, and after casting Elemental Blast, your next Earthquake deals 140% additional damage. In almost all AoE situations, you'll want to alternate these spells, Elemental Blast, then Earthquake. Your Primal Elementalist is a good cooldown. It takes a little extra love and care to get the maximized damage out of it, so here's what you need to do. You need a Weakaura to track when it uses Call Lightning. This buffs its damage by 300%, so you want to wait until it uses the Call Lightning before you activate the Tempest ability. Check the description for Weakauras and macros. There is a Lightning build that skips Icefury and Electrified Shocks that in some cases has simmed higher. I'm not sure if that's still the case since the buff to Icefury and Frost Shock went live, as well as the one that's coming, which extends our Electrified Shocks by 3 more seconds. We're not going to worry about that one for now, so here's what you need to know about Icefury and Frost Shock. Icefury does okay damage. It is used primarily to generate good Maelstrom and to empower our Frost Shocks. Frost Shocks are doing really good damage, as well as allow us to maintain damage while moving. Something you need to know, if you don't already, is that Elemental Shaman are super squishy and my healer friend won't stop complaining about it. With that in mind, we're going to focus our utility picks on 1. Staying alive, 2, group utility, and then 3, maintaining damage uptime. For staying alive, we have a few active cooldowns: Astral Shift, Earth Elemental, and Ancestral Guidance. These are all strong with longer cooldowns. Know when to use them. For Astral Shift, I like to take the Plains Traveler talent to increase its duration and make it usable more often. We also have a handful of passive or semi-passive abilities. I'm not going to go through every single one, but a couple of the less obvious ones are Nature's Guardian, which is going to save your life when it procs. Do not rely on that though. Brimming with Life, while your reincarnation is off cooldown, you have 8% additional max health. And thirdly is the Spirit Wolf talent. It takes a moment to set up, but it will definitely save your life. While transformed into a Ghost Wolf, you get 5% damage reduction every 1 second, stacking 4 times. 20% damage reduction is excellent, but you gotta prepare. Our group utility is going to be relatively straightforward. We have one of the best interrupts in the game with Wind Shear. We can purge buffs and shields off of our enemies, saving a lot of DPS and healing, and we can throw it on Wind Rush to help our group in sticky situations. Mana Spring is mostly irrelevant, it doesn't do much, but it gets us to Ancestral Guidance the fastest way possible in the talent tree, saving us some points for flexibility later. DPS uptime. For DPS uptime, we have Ghost Wolf, Gust of Wind, and Spirit Walker's Grace. Ghost Wolf and Gust of Wind are just going to get us places quicker and out of bad things faster. The main thing here, though, is to slather Spirit Walker's Grace all over everything. The cooldown's relatively short, so unless you know you're going to need it for something soon, use it. Alright, let's talk about your flexible points. On the elemental side, there's not a lot. You've got your Elemental Blast, Elemental Equilibrium, Primal Elementalist, and Aftershock. If you don't take Primal Elementalist, you should take Liquid Magma Totem. You can decide if you want Equilibrium for 1 point, Elemental Blast, or Searing Flames for Maelstrom generation. Searing is especially good if you go the Magma Totem route. I am partial to Elemental Blast since it helps our single target DPS out a lot, but if you want the comfort of having another spender you can use while moving, then Earthshock will work fine. Aftershock is pretty interchangeable with Surge of Power, the trade-off being a lot of predictability versus extra RNG spending. If you take Surge, make sure you know what you want to use that proc on. If you take Aftershock, get ready to change your game plan to hit another spender if it procs. Both are good, both are fun. On the Shaman side, you've got your Spirit Wolf versus Thunderous Paws. If you know you're going to need to escape a route, take the Paws, but be aware that you aren't going to have an emergency damage reduction from Spirit Wolf. Static Charge and Guardian's Cudgel, pretty interchangeable depending on your playstyle, or take neither and pick something else. Thunderstorm's a great option for you to pick up on Spiteful Weeks so you can remain still longer to cast. I almost always take Nature's Swiftness to pair with my Elemental Blast for movement and a quicker cast, but this point could be skipped in favor of something else. Alright, let's talk about rotations. For the opener, you can precast a bunch of things like a maniac. First of all, get your Stormkeeper up, get your Elemental out, precast your Icefury. It's a 2-second cast, that's a bolt spell, which means it has travel time. You can always safely start casting this at 2 seconds on the pull timer if you're really bold and believe in your tanks, 3 seconds. As for your cooldowns, use them early and often unless you know you need to hold them for something coming up. See the part in the video about the Primal Elementalist's ability usage. For single target, you're going to keep your Flame Shock up and Lava Burst on cooldown. Spend your Maelstrom on Elemental Blast, don't even look at Earthquake. Use your Icefury for Maelstrom, usually on cooldown. Lightning Bolt if you get to stand still, and Powered Frost Shocks while on the move. Easy peasy. For multi-target, that's like 4+ targets, there are some nuances, but we're going to keep it simple. Number 1, spend your Maelstrom. You should note with this build that a full Maelstrom bar is 150. Elemental Blast is 75 and Earthquake costs 50, so you need to know what you can do with that. That's 2 Elemental Blasts back to back, or 3 Earthquakes back to back, or 1 Elemental Blast and 1 Earthquake. Getting to your Maelstrom cap with this build can be iffy. With an Aftershock proc or some overloads, you can very easily waste a ton of potential Maelstrom. Don't be shy about pooling some, but always be aware of how close you are to your cap and what your next spell could generate. For AoE, Elemental Blast first, then Earthquake. Always alternate these so you can get the Echoes of the Great Sundering benefits. Secondly, build your Maelstrom. Icefury is great. It will give you a ton of Maelstrom. It'll also empower your Frost Shocks in case you need to move, and hammer that Chain Lightning button. Your Primal Elementalist is also going to really shine here. Make sure you use those abilities. In the 4+ targets, we're talking ignore Flame Shock, ignore Lava Burst. They don't exist. For a low cleave situation, who cares? We suck at this. Do the single target or the multi-target, it doesn't really matter. Single target's probably a little better on 2 targets, multi-target on 3. Just tell your tank to pull more stuff. When it comes to stats, the short answer is haste, better than crit, better than who cares. The long answer is sim yourself. As you get into higher keys, you might want to work in versatility somewhere along the way. A quick note about consumables and some of our enchants. First off, anytime you're not using the Flame Tongue weapon talent, you should use the Weapon Imbue Howling Rune. For files, the File of Static Empowerment is your absolute best throughput, but you're never going to be able to stand still that long. File of Glacial Fury is a solid option for lots of movement, but File of Tepid Versatility is my pick. Versatility gives us some extra damage and survivability that we desperately need. Also a note, anywhere we are not enchanting for pure DPS, enchant for survivability. Leech is okay, avoidance is better. Here are some examples of sims using raid bots in different situations. Sims are not perfect, but can give us an understanding of where we should stand theoretically in certain situations. Every sim here was compared to what is considered the top elemental shaman spec at the moment, which is Wildfire. We can see in single target the difference is negligible. Swapping to Surge of Power would likely put us ahead. In 2 and 3 target sims, we fall behind pretty hard, but make up for that in a big way when we hit 4+ targets. That's my guide on the Elemental Shaman Lightning build. If this helped you at all, I'd appreciate if you left me a like. If it didn't, let me know in the comments what I left out. Also let me know in the comments, do you prefer the Aftershock talent or Surge of Power? Or which of the flexible talent point sets you prefer to take? And maybe I'll see you next time for some more Elemental Shaman gameplay.
Range 5.